There is an alternative universe where the atrocities of World War II never occurred, and Charlie Chaplin would be the most famous person to have that type of moustache that ever existed. Sure, Oliver Hardy would be in with a shout, but Charlie Chappers surely would have been up there, wouldn't he? Of course, if that other fella hadn't had done those terrible things that he did, and I'm not talking about Oliver Hardy, maybe the moustache wouldn't have the stigma attached, and we would have had countless pop, movie and sports stars with it, even to the present day. But maybe I'm talking a load of bunkum. Anyway, this is the second most famous sporter of the toothbrush moustache's very own computer game, which came out in 1988. Charlie Chaplin was born in London in 1889 to parents in the entertainment industry. He started performing in music halls at the age of 5, and despite a turbulent childhood that saw him partly raised in an orphanage when his mother was stricken, he kept on treading those boards. At the age of 21, he visited the United States as a vaudeville comedian under the tutelage of the Fred Carno Company. In 1912, he was offered a movie contract by the Keystone Film Company after becoming a huge hit with audiences. He soon became hot property, eventually signing for 12 comedies with the Mutual Film Company. By the 1920s, Chaplin was one of the biggest film stars in the world, with movies like The Kid, Gold Rush and The Circus winning accolades and turning his skilled hand to direction as well. However, he wasn't without controversy, as Chaplin had been having a secret affair with co-star Lita Grey, whom he met on the set of The Kid when she was 12.
Oh, we get a seat right over there.
It's okay though, as he only started to have an affair with her during a later production when she was 15 and he was 35. Yikes. Different times, just keep telling yourself it's different times. She ended up getting up the duff, and the times being what they were, the pair had to marry, apparently rather unhappily, as they divorced a few years later, though they did produce 2 sons. In fact, he was quite the fertile gentleman, as he had 11 children in all. For the most part, Chaplin played the Little Tramp character in most of the movies he was in, though perhaps his greatest role was in 1940 in the movie The Dictator, where he played the character of Hinkle. See, that moustache came in handy. Indisputably one of the most iconic movie stars in history, Chaplin's ability and timing were second to none. He resisted doing the talkies, or movies with recorded audio if you prefer, for the longest time, but his ability to convey emotions through body language and facial expressions, it was so effortlessly crisp that it didn't even matter. He truly was a master of a lost and dead art. In a way, being the protagonist of silent early black and white cinema makes him the perfect star for a game on the earlier home systems that struggled with things like colour palettes and sound quality. Clearly, US Gold felt the same way when they released starring Charlie Chaplin in 1988. One thing that might bring a few silent chills to the spines of people in the know is that coding duties were handed to Canvas Software, who gave us the incredibly not okay Miami Vice and Highlander games for Ocean. Still, their heritage is from Denton Designs and Imagine, so you'd think they'd have some chops. Hopefully that bears fruit here. Versions were released for the Amstrad, the Spectrum and MS-DOS, with versions reaching quite a late stage on the Commodore 64 and Atari ST, but they were eventually cancelled before their release. Certainly the brilliant Games That Weren't website have done extensive research into this, and they revealed that the Commodore 64 code is now accessible in internet land should you wish to give it a try. I had difficulties getting the Amstrad version to run on my emulators, so I'll be mainly looking at the Spectrum with a couple of looks at the MS-DOS one that I managed to get working. The idea of starring Charlie Chaplin's gameplay is extremely novel. You're not only Charlie Chaplin, but also a studio exec and a director trying to get 1920s and 30s crowds hollering down the aisles at the antics of this little git. You're given the option on a handful of the scripts for Charlie's biggest early hits, with different costs on shooting and the writing itself. These are incredibly short movies with less than 5 1-minute scenes per celluloid production. You need to turn a profit, so it falls to Chucky Boy here to take part in scenes with other actors and props on a soundstage themed around a particular location, and goof around sufficiently to make chortles flow like a loose bowel after a food poisoning outbreak in a curry house. Then you have to take the completed scenes to the editing suite to get them all buffed up before viewing the entire movie with the audience in the theatre, complete with caption cards. Then the press and the common folk will vote on the quality of your production with their attendance. Make a barnstormer and you'll be rolling in dollars. Make a stinker and you'll be in debt, game overing, and no doubt awaiting the Stone Slippers river swim from the local gangster fraternity. Oh, and US Gold, see me after class for this spelling, please. Tut tut. The way I've explained it sounds terrific, doesn't it? After reading the overview of the gameplay initially, I was very excited to play it, but I'm afraid I left in as much disappointment as I was when I realised my son was never going to be a World Cup winning footballing ace that I wanted to live vicariously through for the rest of my life. It is as unfinished as this dog. Let's talk of the good points first, and as I said earlier, the game is perfectly presented. The monochrome, born from limitations as much as stylistic choice, really does work quite well. The backdrops of the sound stages and the movie theatres that the action takes place on are well realised, and the animation of Charlie is suitably comedic with his signature walk, baffled expression and his twirling cane. Once again, the concept is brilliant. The realisation is utterly terrible. It's so limited, even more so on the Spectrum than the DOS version. In the DOS version, I was able to work out a few of the actions, such as kissing the lady and giving the male players a good kick to the shins. Once struck, the felled felon would drop to his Harris and then give me chase. In the Spectrum, I worked out how to punch. That's it. Having looked at numerous reviews and inlaid printouts, I still can't work out how to do any of the other actions, and I'm not actually convinced that the other actions are in this version. They feel like they should be though. The young starlet, hopefully legal this time, will lean in to give Chaplin a smooch, but Charlie doesn't reciprocate like he does in the DOS version. So whilst you can commit a still rather limited amount of slapstick mayhem in the PC version, all you can do in the Spectrum one is walk about punching people. This might go down quite well with football hooligan movie fans, some 80 or 90 years later, but I'm not sure it's going to have people clutching their sides in mirth in a time of rickets and open racism. It keeps up with the attitudes of the time at least. Chaplin is the second character in a black and white Spectrum game where I've been given the ability to beat up my wife, with Andy Capp being the other. In the Spectrum version, the blows for the most part will be ignored by the AI, and they just sort of get up and walk about rather than baying for old Adolf Feltram and his outsized pantaloons. Now, if you know of a way to perform other actions other than the knuckle sandwich during the 1 minute long scenes with Charlie on Clive's machine, please do let me know in the comments. Other than the limitations of the slapstick potential, it's also difficult to line up your interactions with the other characters, which will lead to more whiffing than a walk around a sewage farm on a hot July day. Editing? Well, that sounds very exciting, doesn't it? Then you remember that you're editing on a 48K Spectrum, so it's not likely to be Cyberlink Power Director levels of editing software here. In the editing, you can play, you can stop, and you can fast forward. You can't cut out snippets that are just you flailing around trying to punch the town drunk. That's it. That's all you can do. I mean, the 1 minute sections are short enough, I suppose, so you shouldn't really be able to take anything else out of them. But it's not really editing, is it? Is it impressive that the game is capable of showing you 3 whole minutes of gameplay from memory in the cinema section? Absolutely. Really clever stuff. But I don't think I can be missing anything in the editing because the 3 controls are right there on the screen. But overall, with this game, I think there must be something missing, or lots of things. It surely can't be just this, can it? Maybe it is. If so, this game is a lot like Charlie Chaplin. It's got some brilliant pioneering ideas, but due to the limitations of the technology of the time, the act just provides the same set pieces, the same action again and again. It's all it's capable of doing. Also, it's trying to do much with something that just isn't ready for it yet. Leave it a few years, come back to it once it's matured. Do you see what I'm doing here? Reviews at the time were also not overly taken with the Little Tramp and his pratfall shenanigans. C&VG reviewed the game on the Spectrum in their issue 81. They awarded it a 4 out of 10 and stated that gameplay is just so ill thought out and limited. Reviewer Matt Bealby thought that he couldn't imagine anyone sitting down and playing it more than twice. Your Sinclair liked it a little bit more. They said it was an original vehicle for a knock 'em down. The vehicle's great, shame the action doesn't match up. Nice try. They thought it was worthy of a 7 out of 10. So that then is a frosty reception for Charlie. But that's a reception that the next main character in this Weird License series might enjoy, as he's Tony the Tiger. Yes, we're going to be doing Tony the Tiger and Friends on the Amiga. Until then, like, subscribe, and thanks, bye.